Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you here today with an article from The Federalist. It is dated April 3rd, and it is entitled, RFK Jr. is right about Joe Biden. Now, what did RFK Jr. say about Joe Biden? And the subheadline here says, the president is a threat to the constitutional order, which is pretty much what RFK said, but let's go into it. It says RFK Jr. can be an unhinged leftist and crackpot, but he also happens to be correct about Joe Biden's attacks on constitutional order, particularly free expression. Speaking to an incredulous Aaron Burnett on CNN this week, which is why he wasn't agreed with and why people think he's kind of a kook, it says Kennedy argued that Biden was a bigger threat to democracy, in scare quotes, than Donald Trump, a position that clashes with the media's entire 2024 campaign messaging, and is also something that Bobby Kennedy Jr. happens to be completely right about. You just look at the things that Biden is doing right now, like, say, trying to imprison Donald Trump on trumped-up charges. He's trying to imprison his main political opponent. Well, there's another leader in the world that kind of did the same thing, and they think that the Republicans are on the side of that guy. So it's funny how they're parroting Vladimir Putin. This is a more decent world. We'd be debating which presidential candidate was better at upholding the constitutional order rather than which one was worse. That is not our fate. And yet, the unique thing about the 2024 presidential contest is that voters are given a chance to compare existing presidential records. Kennedy contends that Biden is, quote, the first candidate in history, the first president in history that has used the federal agencies to censor political speech or censor his opponent, end quote. One suspects Eugene Debs might quibble with this characterization, though not since the Committee on Public Information has there been a White House that has shown such disdain for free expression and hate. And remember, they were also colluding with tech companies to silence people talking about a certain disease that made its way around the world a few years ago. So there's that too. Says Biden is the first president to openly and secretly pressure major communication companies to take direction and work in conjunction with state agencies to censor debate. Well, I guess that sentence says kind of what I was just talking about. Not cutting that cough out. Says the same left-wingers who do not believe in any limiting principles while regulating economic life will lecture us about how so-called platforms are free to work with anyone they please, including the White House. Says, okay, but tech companies also spend tens of millions each year in Washington rent-seeking and lobbying for favorable regulations. They are highly susceptible to state intimidation. When Biden deputizes massive communication companies to act as censors, he's merely taking a shortcut in the suppression of speech that undercuts, at the very minimum, the spirit and purpose of the First Amendment. And if anybody wants to go look up what the government working with corporations, or I should say the state working with corporations, is a component of, by all means, go look it up. And if you're on the left, you're going to realize that a word you've been using for quite a while is not quite what you think it was. And actually, this next sentence kind of mentions that word I was hinting at. It says, one might even call this brand of state-corporate relationship semi-fascist. I wouldn't even say one might call it that. That's almost the definition of fascism, but okay, let's keep going. It says, RFK is right that the Biden administration engaged in censorship through agencies, but it wasn't exactly a secret. Recall Jen Psaki, or Peppermint Patty as we shall call her, informing us that the White House was flagging problematic posts for Facebook that spread disinformation. Disinformation meaning things the White House didn't like, not that they were false. There's a big difference here. As Biden claimed that allowing unfettered speech on Facebook during that certain disease was killing people, which it was not, and he has absolutely zero evidence of that. It says, just contemplate the media's reaction if Trump's White House had been keeping lists of problematic posts. Yeah, they'd be apoplectic about it. It says, remember as well, White House Communications Director Kate Bedingfield warning that social media companies should be held accountable for the ideas of those who use their websites. No, that shouldn't be a thing. I mean, that's like if somebody takes a gun out and shoots people, holding the gun company responsible for that. It's like, you don't know who's buying your stuff and who's using it. I mean, let's just say, maybe that's not a good example. Maybe a better example is like, let's just say you're in a band, okay, and somebody buys your album. Of course, you don't know who that person is, okay, and then that person goes and does something bad, not because of necessarily anything on your album, but just, you're not inciting evidence, you're just a band doing an album. Somebody buys it and that person goes and commits a serious crime. Should the band be held responsible for that? I mean, even if the band does have provocative lyrics, should the band still be held reliable for that? Like, I don't think so. That's just a dumb thing to say. So was Bedingfield, that is, talking about the ideas that spurred the 2020 Black Lives Matter riots, the most expensive in history? Was she talking about those who spread conspiracy theories about Russian collusion? Probably not, yeah, because all those people are on the left. It's as though Trump never did anything to inhibit the spread of criticism or conspiracy theories. That's true. I give him that one. Says the practical problem with allowing the state to dictate speech is that it will surely abuse the power by tagging inconvenient positions as disinformation, as it did with the Hunter Biden laptop story and as it did with when pressuring Facebook to ban stories on the Chinese origins of that particular disease. That's been mentioned a few times already. It says, even if this were not the case, the state has no business guiding, engaging in, or suggesting any limits on free expression, even when it comes to real misinformation or disinformation. The president swore an oath to the Constitution, not the consensus of experts. Yeah, I mean, that's 100% correct, is that there shouldn't be any limits on free expression. And the way I've always looked at it is that if your free speech starts infringing on my rights, then yes, it's a problem. I should say not just mine, but anybody's. Then yeah, it's a problem. Like, you can't threaten me with like bodily harm of some sort. Okay, like that's illegal. You can't do that. Okay, you actually can yell fire in a crowded theater, believe it or not. But if you're wishing harm upon somebody, that's not free speech, and you don't get to go around saying it is, because it just isn't. But other than that, I don't really have any sort of problems with anything anyone says. Someone says something I don't like, just okay, shrug and move on with my day. Says, but look at me, that's the author, not me, Jason, naively prattling on about neutral principles. There is no uproar when Biden creates a ministry of truth to combat alleged disinformation because the media are uninterested in neutrality of free expression. Partisan legionnaires like Philip Bump note that misinformation spouting RFK Jr. muses that Biden is a threat to democracy, as if these assertions are somehow in conflict. Most of the attacks on RFK's comments by experts and historians do nothing to dispel the contention that the president works to censor Americans. Yeah, and Philip Bump, by the way, one, works for the Washington Post, and two, go look up an interview. I was on a podcast that he did at this point, it was, months ago, where the podcast host was just asking him a question about, like, the Hunter Biden laptop story, and this MFer, Philip Bump, like, kind of flipped out at the guy, like, he was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Either he was playing... either he was just playing dumb, or he legitimately was like, I don't know what this story is. You know, something that broke years upon years ago at this point. And this dude's just like, I don't know what that is. So, yeah, he's not exactly an honest actor, we shall say. So continuing on, it says, one gets a sense, in fact, that just like Ketanji Brown Jackson, most Democrats believe the state dictating speech, as long as it's run by the left, is both necessary and good for democracy. Now, that's a bad thing when you're saying only our side should be regulating speech. I don't care which side it is. That's not going to be a good thing, whichever way it goes. And the author says, me, I don't believe in questioning public health officials as any kind of threat to the constitutional order, because it's not. It says, nor is questioning the outcome of elections. That too. And if Democrats wanted to hold to that position, they'd realize that they've been questioning every election that they've lost since 2000. So there is that part too. So it's not if you do so with the system and a court exists that will stop illegitimate attempts to take it, as it did, for instance, when Al Gore tried it in 2000. It says Biden incidentally continues to smear, delegitimize, and ignore that court whenever convenient, which is 100% true. Just look at the student loan stuff that he's doing, amongst other things. It says the biggest threat to democracy, and if by democracy we still mean the Constitution, is when the powerful ignore limits of the state with impunity. From that perspective, Biden has been a cancer on democracy. That's a very good sentence. I like that. It says the left rationalizes and often justifies his authoritarianism by noting the existence of Trump. Even if the former president were as bad as Democrats claim, there is a slew of institutions ready to stop him. Biden, those institutions cheer on his abuses, and that alone makes him more dangerous. I agree with everything in this article. It's a very good article, and it gives examples of things as well that Biden is doing. It's not everything. It's far from everything, but I would agree with him. I would agree with RFK and the author of the article that Joe Biden is absolutely the bigger threat to democracy, at least the way democracy is meant, than Donald Trump is, and probably will ever be. So let me know what you guys think about this. Did you hear what RFK said? It would have been at the point you're hearing this probably, at least a week ago, I'm guessing. But let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.